still remember the sound of rain against the hospital window that night. It was soft, almost kind, the kind of rain that whispers comfort. But inside me, something else was breaking. The nurse had just checked my IV when my phone buzzed on the small table beside my bed. It was from my neighbor, Martha. "Clara, I don't mean to upset you," her message read, "but there's a for sale sign outside your house." At first, I thought she must have texted the wrong person. My house? The little blue one with the white porch? The home where my husband and I had lived for 40 years. No, that had to be a mistake. My fingers trembled as I tried to call her. "Martha, what did you just say?" "It's true, honey," she whispered. "Your son was here this morning, with some real estate people. I didn't want to interfere, but I thought you should know." I felt my breath catch. My son, Daniel, my sweet boy who I had raised after his father passed. The same boy I'd given every penny to help through college. Daniel was selling my house? I could barely form the words. When Martha stayed quiet, I already knew the answer. Later that evening, Daniel came to visit. I could still smell the faint scent of his cologne before he even entered the room. He looked tired, or maybe guilty. "Mum," he said, setting down a bag of fruit. "You look better today." I watched his hands. They shook slightly as he rearranged the oranges, avoiding my eyes. "Daniel," I said softly, "why is there a for sale sign outside my house?" He froze. For a few seconds, I could hear the rain again, steady, unbothered, merciless. He finally looked up. "Mom, please, don't get upset. It's not what you think I wanted to believe him. God knows I did. What is it then?" He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "You've been in the hospital for 3 weeks, Mom. The place is too big for you. The maintenance, the bills. You can't handle it alone. I thought maybe we should downsize, I whispered. "Without telling me?" His jaw clenched. "I was going to, Mom. I just didn't want to stress you while you're recovering." I smiled faintly, that same calm smile mothers wear when their hearts are breaking. "I see," I said. "And when were you planning to tell me my home was no longer mine?" He looked away, guilt flickering like a shadow across his face. "I just wanted what's best for you." I leaned back against the pillows. "What's best for me?" I said quietly. "Or what's best for you?" He didn't answer. He just said, "I'll come back tomorrow," and left before I could say another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory of that house came flooding back. The smell of cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings, the laughter that used to fill the kitchen, the small garden where my husband planted daisies just for me. Now it was being sold, without my voice, without my consent, and by the person I loved most. I stared at the ceiling, whispering to myself, after everything I gave, was I really just a burden now? Have you ever felt unwanted in your own family? Tap that so I know I'm not alone. The next morning, I asked the nurse for my phone. My hands still shook from weakness, but I managed to open my banking app. My savings, what little was left after hospital bills, was lower than I remembered. Something about that number didn't sit right. I opened my messages. A few weeks ago, Daniel had asked for my online banking password to help pay utilities. I hadn't thought twice. He was my son, after all. But now, the numbers didn't match. The mortgage had been cleared. Property taxes paid in full. Yet somehow, my account balance had dropped by almost $25,000. My stomach twisted. I wasn't sure what scared me more. The thought of losing my home, or the realization that maybe, just maybe, Daniel had already planned this long before I got sick. I called my lawyer, Mr. Harris, an old friend of my husband's. "Clara," he said, surprised. "I thought you were still recovering." "I am," I replied softly. "But I think I need to ask you something important." He listened as I told him everything: the house listing, the missing money, the strange behavior. After a long silence, he said, "Clara, do you remember the deed you and your husband updated 5 years ago?" "Yes, why?" "You might want to come see me as soon as you're discharged. There's something your son probably forgot." "What is it?" I asked. He hesitated. "Let's just say your husband was a wise man. Very wise." That sentence lingered in my mind all day. What had my husband done? What had Daniel forgotten? When the nurse came in to change my IV, I pretended to be asleep. My mind was racing. Daniel came again that evening, cheerful, almost too cheerful. "Mom," he said, "the buyer made a great offer. You'll be able to move into a nice assisted living place. I already checked some out." I stared at him in disbelief. "You mean it's done?" "Almost," he said quickly. "We just need your signature on a few things once you're out." I looked into his eyes, searching for the boy I once knew, the boy who used to hug me after nightmares, the boy who cried at his father's funeral. But all I saw was a man with plans that didn't include me. "Daniel," I said quietly, "do you really think I'm that helpless?" He forced a smile. "Mom, please. You don't understand how hard this is for me." I nodded slowly. "No, son. I think I understand exactly that night. When the lights dimmed and the halls grew quiet, I whispered to myself, maybe he sold my house. Maybe he took my savings. But there's still one thing he doesn't know I own." I touched the gold locket around my neck, the one my husband gave me years ago. Inside it was a tiny folded note, the same note my husband had written before he passed. The one Daniel never knew existed, and inside that note was the secret that could change everything. I still remember the first night after I came home from the hospital. The house felt different, colder. The walls that once echoed with laughter now stood silent, as if they too knew something had changed. My son, Michael, had moved a few things around, said it was to make the place easier for me. But I noticed the photographs. The ones of my late husband and I were no longer on the mantel. Instead, there was a new family photo: Michael, his wife Anna, and their daughter. My face was missing. It was subtle, but my heart noticed. I sat in my chair, staring at the empty spot where my memories used to sit. A small ache started growing inside me. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, Michael was a good boy once. He used to bring me wildflowers from the garden when he was just 5, whispering, "These are for you, Mom, because you're the prettiest." How could that same child turn into someone who could sell my home? It didn't make sense. Not yet, but life has a way of showing the truth slowly, like a curtain being pulled back, 1 inch at a time. Back then, when my husband David was alive, everything was simple. We worked hard, saved every penny, built this home from scratch, every brick laid with love. I used to keep a small box under my bed, filled with old receipts, loan slips and property papers. David said, "Keep it safe, Mary. One day, this house will protect you." His words echo in my mind now, almost like a warning from the past. After he passed away, the house became my only comfort. I spent evenings sitting by the window, knitting while watching the sun go down. Michael would visit sometimes, always in a rush, phone in hand, saying, "Mom, I'll come next week." Things are just crazy at work, and next week would never come. When he finally did visit, Anna came along. She was polite, but distant. Always watching, always smiling, but her words carried a quiet sharpness. "You should really think about moving in with us, Mum," she said one afternoon, pretending to tidy up my kitchen. "It's not safe for you here alone." I laughed gently. "This is my home, dear. I'm safer here than anywhere else." She smiled back, but her eyes, they flickered with something else. I didn't see it then. Maybe I didn't want to. One evening, as we sat for dinner, Anna talked about money. "You know, Mum, property taxes are so high nowadays. It must be hard for you," I shrugged. "I manage," Michael added softly. "You shouldn't have to worry about those things, Mum." Let me handle the bills. That was the start of it. The first thread pulled. I didn't realize they were weaving a web right under my nose. A few months later, I got sick. Nothing too serious at first. Or so I thought. But one night, I fainted. They rushed me to the hospital. And while I lay there, weak and trusting, the world outside my room started shifting. I remember Anna's voice by my bedside. "Don't worry, Mum. We'll take care of everything." I believed her. I shouldn't have. Have you ever trusted someone so much, only to realize later that trust was the weapon they used against you? Tap if you've ever felt that kind of heartbreak. When I was discharged, I noticed small changes. My favorite vase missing, a drawer locked, mail being redirected. When I asked Michael, he said, "It's just temporary, Mum. We're organizing things for you." His smile was calm, practiced. But one night, I woke up to faint whispers coming from the kitchen. I heard Anna's voice, low and firm. She doesn't even remember half the documents. Once we sign the sale papers, she won't question it. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I could barely breathe. I wanted to believe I'd misheard, but the next words shattered me. "Don't worry," Michael whispered. "She trusts me. She'll sign anything I put in front of her." I clutched my blanket and bit my lip to keep from making a sound. My own son. The boy I raised with love and sacrifice. The child who once cried because he broke my favorite mug. Now planning to take away the only thing I had left. The next morning, they acted as if nothing happened. Smiling, cheerful, serving breakfast. "You should rest more, Mum," Anna said sweetly. I nodded and played along, but something inside me changed that day. I decided to be quiet, to watch, to wait. Sometimes silence is the only power left to those who've been betrayed. Comment true if you know that kind of pain. Days passed, and one afternoon, while cleaning, I found an envelope under a pile of bills. It had my name on it, but the handwriting wasn't mine. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a bank statement, my savings account, the one I'd opened decades ago, after David's passing. The balance didn't match. Thousands of dollars were gone. And the signature at the bottom? It looked eerily like mine. My vision blurred. My knees went weak. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at that forged signature, the one that proved what my heart had already known. They weren't just after the house, they were after everything. But what they didn't know was that David had taught me something before he died, something I never told anyone. A secret only I knew. That secret was the one thing they could never sell, the one thing I still owned. And soon, they were going to find out exactly what it was. The air was heavy that evening. The living room looked the same. Same curtains, same clock ticking softly on the wall. But it didn't feel like my home anymore. My son and his wife sat across from me, their faces calm, polite, practiced. On the table lay a folder. the kind you only see in offices or courtrooms. I had called for this meeting myself. Michael thought it was about my health. Anna thought it was about money. Neither of them knew I had already seen the papers. Neither of them knew the lawyer sitting quietly beside me was not a stranger, but an old friend of my late husband. "Mom," Michael said, clearing his throat. "You look upset. Did something happen?" I looked at him, my own flesh and blood, and for the first time I saw not my son, but a man I didn't recognize. "Yes," I said softly. "Something did happen." Silence followed. Only the ticking clock filled the room. I opened the folder slowly and slid the forged bank papers across the table. His face froze. Anna's eyes darted to his. "Can you explain this to me?" I asked, my voice steady but trembling at the edges. "It looks like my signature, but it isn't. Who took this money, Michael?" His lips parted, searching for words, but none came. "Mom, there must be some mistake," Anna interrupted quickly, her voice tight. "Maybe you—" I raised my hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. "Please don't lie to me. I may be old, but I'm not blind." My lawyer cleared his throat quietly. "Mrs. Williams asked me to verify the documents," he said firmly. "They were indeed forged. And there's more." He pulled out another envelope and laid it on the table. "This," he continued, "is the sale deed of this house, signed and processed last month, while Mrs. Williams was still in the hospital." The room fell silent. Michael's eyes widened. Anna's face turned pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "She signed it." "No," I said, my voice breaking but clear. "I didn't." "You did. In my name." My words hung in the air like a blade. Michael stood up suddenly, his voice rising. "Mom, listen, I was just trying to secure things. We thought you wouldn't make it out of the hospital. I didn't want strangers taking advantage." "So you became the stranger," I whispered. Tears filled my eyes. "The one your father warned me about. The kind that wears a familiar face but hides a hungry heart." Anna looked away. The silence that followed was unbearable. My lawyer spoke again, calm and professional. "You both should know that this house wasn't entirely in your name, Mrs. Williams," he said. "There's a co-owner listed on the deed, her late husband, David Williams, and before his passing, he added one more clause, one that protects her ownership for life." I turned my gaze toward Michael. "He left me something you could never take. Legal ownership until my last breath." Michael's face drained of color. "That means," the lawyer continued, "the sale you made is invalid. The property legally reverts to Mrs. Williams." A gasp left Anna's lips. Michael slumped back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. You knew," he stammered. I nodded slowly. "I may be old, but I remember every word your father ever told me. I just never thought I'd have to use it against my own son." The weight of my words filled the room. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Anna, her voice sharp with panic, hissed, "We needed the money. You were lying there dying, and we had bills. You had greed," I said softly, "and you mistook it for need." My lawyer gathered the papers, his job done. "Everything will be reversed," he said, "and I'll be filing the forgery report in the morning." Michael's head snapped up. "Mom, please. You can't do this. We're family." I looked at him, my heart aching. "Family?" I whispered. "Family doesn't steal from a dying mother. Family doesn't sell her memories for cash." He fell silent. The only sound left was the slow creak of the clock's second hand. I reached into my pocket and took out a small old key, rusted but familiar. I placed it on the table. "Do you remember this?" I asked. Michael frowned. It's from the basement. I nodded. Your father and I built a small safe there. You never knew about it. Inside, I kept the original property papers, the real ones, the house, the savings, everything. You thought you sold my home, but you only sold your conscience. The color drained from Anna's face. You mean, the documents we used were copies, I finished quietly. Worthless copies. Michael buried his face in his hands. For a moment, I wanted to reach out to him, to hold him like I used to when he was a child. But I didn't. Some lessons have to be learned through pain. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? I said softly, my eyes glistening. Tap heart if that pain feels familiar. The lawyer stood, gathering the evidence. We'll handle the rest, Mary, he said kindly. You've been through enough. I nodded, but my eyes stayed on Michael. I don't hate you, I whispered, but I can't trust you again. You sold the roof your father built with his hands. You sold the place where I raised you, where your first steps echoed down this hallway. Tell me, Michael, was it worth it? He said nothing. Tears fell silently down his cheeks. Anna grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The echo rang through the house like thunder. Michael stayed seated, broken, staring at the floor. I just wanted to give my family a better life, he murmured. Then you should have remembered who gave you yours, I replied. He left without another word. The house fell quiet again. Only the wind outside whispering through the old window frames. I sat there alone, surrounded by silence, by truth, and by memories that refused to fade. Sometimes all you have left is your dignity, I said softly, looking into the distance. Share this if you'd still choose respect over riches. The lawyer paused at the door. Mary, he said gently, are you going to press charges? I looked at the papers, at the old photographs on the wall, at the key still lying on the table. Not tonight, I said quietly. Sometimes the greatest punishment isn't prison, it's living with what you've done. The music faded, low piano as truth settled in. I picked up the key and closed my fingers around it. It was small, cold, heavy with memory. I whispered to the empty room. You forgot one thing I still owned, Michael. My father's promise and my strength. The lights dimmed. The clock ticked once more, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, like the sound of justice approaching. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that weighs on your chest until you can't breathe. The judge's gavel hadn't struck yet, but everyone in that room already knew what this was. A family's final breaking point. I sat on the wooden bench, my hands trembling slightly around the folded papers in my lap. Across from me sat my son, Michael. His wife, Anna, kept her head low, her fingers twisting nervously. Their lawyer whispered something to them, but their eyes refused to meet mine. My own attorney, Mr. Daniels, stood ready, calm, focused, and kind. He'd known me and my late husband for years. All rise, the bailiff announced. The judge entered, grey-haired, stern, with eyes that saw through everything. Let's begin, he said. And so we did. The trial to reclaim not just a house, but my dignity began. Mr. Daniels opened simply. Your Honor, this case is not about money. It's about trust, a mother's trust, betrayed by her own blood. His words cut through the air like cold wind. He handed the first set of documents to the clerk. These are the original property deeds, verified, notarized, and stored in a separate safe that only Mrs. Williams had access to. Her son, Mr. Michael Williams, forged her signature and attempted to sell her property while she was hospitalized. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Is that true, Mr. Williams?" Michael swallowed hard. "Your Honor, I thought she wouldn't." "You thought I wouldn't wake up," I said quietly from my seat. My voice echoed louder than I expected. "You thought you could sell my memories while I was fighting for my life." The judge raised his hand for silence. "Mrs. Williams, please let your counsel proceed." I nodded, holding back tears. Mr. Daniels continued, pulling another folder from his briefcase. "Your Honor, we also have bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals totaling $80,000 from Mrs. Williams's savings. All done while she was in the hospital. Signatures were forged. The bank's security footage will confirm who made those transactions." Anna's head snapped up. "That's not true," she burst out. "He told me she approved it." Michael's eyes went wide. "Anna, don't." The judge slammed the gavel. "Order!" The courtroom fell silent again, but the damage was done. Whispers began, soft, sharp, judgmental. People were already connecting the dots. Mr. Daniels nodded slightly toward the bailiff. "We have that footage cued, Your Honor." The lights dimmed slightly as the monitor flickered on. There, in grainy black and white footage, stood Michael and Anna at the bank counter, signing, smiling, withdrawing. The courtroom gasped collectively. Even the judge's face hardened. Michael slumped in his chair. Anna buried her face in her hands. I couldn't speak. The pain was too deep. I just sat there, trembling, remembering the little boy who once brought me flowers from the garden. The judge turned to me gently. "Mrs. Williams, is there anything you'd like to say before I make my ruling?" I stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table for balance. My voice came out soft but clear. "I raised my son, to be honest. His father built that house with his own hands. We didn't have much, but we had love. And when I was in that hospital bed, I thought about how proud his father would have been of the man he became. But today, all I see is the man he lost himself to." My words caught in my throat. "You didn't just sell my house, Michael. You sold your father's promise, and you broke something I can never rebuild." Michael's eyes glistened with tears. He tried to speak, but the judge's voice came first. "That's enough." The ruling came quickly. "The court hereby nullifies the fraudulent sale and restores full ownership of the property to Mrs. Mary Williams. Furthermore, the court recommends investigation into the forged documents and unauthorized withdrawals." Gasps filled the room. Justice had spoken. Mr. Daniels placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "It's over," he whispered. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss wrapped in relief. Michael stood, shaking. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." The judge left the bench, and the room began to clear, but I stayed seated. I looked at my son, the same boy who once held my hand crossing the street. "You meant every signature," I said softly. "You meant every lie." He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. Anna whispered something to him, and they both turned toward the door. That walk of shame, slow, head down, silent, said more than any apology ever could. As they left, I heard someone whisper behind me, "How could you do that to your own mother?" Another voice, older, gentler. "Some people only realize too late what real wealth is." I sat quietly, staring at the courtroom floor. My hands shook slightly, the papers still in them. "Sometimes justice takes time," I said under my breath. "But it always comes. If seeing truth win gives you hope, tap symbol more people see this." Outside the courthouse, the sun was setting. Reporters waited, their cameras flashing, asking for a statement. I said nothing. I just smiled faintly, a tired smile of a woman who'd seen too much and survived anyway. Mr. Daniels spoke to them instead. Justice was served today, not because of laws, but because truth found its way home. That night, I sat in my car outside the old house, my house, now legally mine again. The front porch light flickered, the same one David installed 30 years ago. I got out slowly, feeling the gravel under my feet. Every creak of the wooden steps sounded like a heartbeat returning to life. Inside, everything was just as I'd left it before the hospital. My rocking chair, the family photos, the faint smell of roses from the vase I'd forgotten to refill. I sat down, the house quiet around me. Justice was done, but peace still felt far away. I picked up a picture, Michael at age 10, holding a fishing rod, smiling proudly beside his father. Tears welled in my eyes. Was victory worth the price of losing my son? I whispered to no one. The answer came only as silence. Sometimes, even when the world finally admits you were right, it doesn't fix the part that broke. I closed my eyes, and the memories came rushing back. Laughter, dinners, birthdays, moments before greed stole them. They thought she was weak, I murmured, but she showed them what real strength looks like. If you believe justice still matters, comment true. The camera would fade here, soft piano playing, as the old woman sits alone under the warm light of her reclaimed home, one hand over her heart, whispering the only truth that still hurts to say, he sold the house, but I'm the one who lost everything inside it. It's been 2 years since that day in court. The papers are long signed, the house once again in my name, and the town's whispers have faded into silence. The garden outside blooms brighter than ever, perhaps because I finally learned to care for it again, not for anyone else, but for myself. Each morning, I make my tea, open the window, and watch the sunlight spill over the old oak tree. It's strange. The same home that once felt heavy with betrayal now feels lighter, freer. Maybe because it's no longer a house filled with ghosts, but a sanctuary of lessons. There's peace in small things now. I learned how to fix the squeaky door David used to promise he'd mend. I painted the porch myself one afternoon when the loneliness felt too sharp. Every stroke of white paint was a reminder. I'm still here, still capable, still standing. When neighbors pass by, they often wave and stop for a chat. Mrs. Henderson from down the road brings me pie on Sundays. She says, "Mary, you've got strength in your bones, woman. I don't know how you did it." I smile and say, "You just learn to survive what you can't change." Sometimes, when I'm alone, I still hear my son's voice. Not the man he became, but the little boy who used to call, "Mama, come see what I built." I close my eyes and let the memory stay a little while. I've learned not to fight the pain anymore. Pain, when faced, becomes softer. Forgiveness didn't come easily. For months, I tried to hate him, to cling to my anger like a shield, but hate is heavy. It robs you of sleep, of laughter, of peace. One morning, I realized I was still letting him own my heart, even after he'd stolen my house. So, I let it go. Not for him, but for me. I sent him a letter 6 months ago. No accusations, no bitterness, just a mother's quiet truth. I wrote, "You took everything your father built, but you forgot one thing I still owned, my integrity. And that's something you'll never be able to sell." I didn't expect an answer. I just wanted him to know I'd stopped fighting him in my heart. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over poison. A few weeks later, a small envelope arrived. no return address. Inside was a note, written in his handwriting, shaky, uncertain. It read, "Mom, I'm sorry. I lost everything. I see now what I really took from you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I finally understand." I cried that night, not out of pain, but out of release. Sometimes the apology comes too late to rebuild what was broken, but just in time to close the wound. Now, my days are simple, but full. I spend mornings tending to the roses David planted years ago. The red ones bloom beautifully this season. My granddaughter visits on weekends, bringing cookies and laughter that fill the house with new memories. I teach her how to make biscuits from scratch, and she listens to my stories like they're magic. One afternoon she asked, "Grandma, do you still miss Grandpa?" I smiled. "Every day," I said, "but I also see him in every good thing that grows." Sometimes she asks about her father, my son. I tell her the truth gently. He made mistakes, but he's still my son. You don't stop loving your child because they lost their way. She nods, thoughtful, and holds my hand a little tighter. Love doesn't erase pain, but it reminds us why we endured it. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, tap symbol so I know I'm not alone. Comment strong if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from the ground up, because that's what healing really is. Not forgetting the storm, but learning to dance again once the rain stops. I sometimes sit on the porch at sunset, tea in hand, the world wrapped in gold. The air feels forgiving now. The laughter of children echoes from down the street. Life goes on, and somehow, so do we. My neighbor's cat curls up by my feet. The breeze smells of lilacs and peace. It's in these quiet moments that I understand the real meaning of inheritance. It isn't the money, the house, or the land. It's the strength, the love, and the dignity we leave behind. A few days ago, I found an old photograph tucked in the back of a drawer. Michael, just 5 years old, holding my hand at the beach, his hair wild, his eyes bright. I sat there for a long while, tracing the edges with my fingers. "I hope you're well, son," I whispered. "I hope you found your way home." Maybe one day he will. Maybe not. Either way, I've made peace with both possibilities. Grandmas deserve respect and love. Share this so everyone remembers that. Because too often, we only realize a mother's worth when it's too late. Now, when people in town talk about me, they don't whisper about the scandal anymore. They say, "Mary, oh, that woman's strong. She lost everything and still smiles." And maybe that's the truest victory of all. Not getting back what was taken, but rediscovering who you were before the loss. Sometimes, when the wind rustles through the trees, I hear David's voice in my heart. "You did good, Mary." I close my eyes, breathe deeply and smile. Because yes, I did. And yet, in the stillness of night, when the world is quiet, I sometimes wonder, if life gave me another chance to reclaim peace, would I still choose forgiveness? Or would I finally let go of love that hurt so much? Maybe that's what life is, learning when to hold on, and when to set your heart free.